All right. So will Budget 2021 put the Indian economy back on a high growth track? That's what we're asking tonight on Brass Tacks. Joining us on our talking point, big panel tonight. Sambit Patra of the BJP, Gaurav Vallabh of the Congress, Sunilkant Munjal is former president of the CII and chairman of Hero Enterprises. We're also joined by Kanchan Gupta, Distinguished Fellow at ORF. Dr. Manoj Kumar is the founder of Hammurabi and Solomon Partners. Sunil Alag, Chairman of SK Advisors. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for speaking with us. Let me start with you, Mr. Munjal. The big picture, as far as you are concerned, is this a signal that the government is not going to shy away from big-ticket reform? Even in the auto sector, for example, and this would be of particular interest to you, the scrappage policy, new national scrappage policy that's been announced. You reckon this will be a big fillip? Mr. Munjal, you have to unmute yourself, please.
Sure. Okay, sorry, let me repeat myself.
Sure.
What I was saying was, it is a pretty amazing job that has been done under very difficult circumstances, because there were all kind of apprehensions that you may have to squeeze the budget, you may have to tax people too much, you may not be able to spend on infrastructure. She's actually put all those fears to rest by only allowing the fiscal deficit to slip for a period of time, which is, of course, one of the recommendations being made by many of the industry bodies. CII had made that. Many economists had made that. And she's done a wonderful job of covering all the way from infrastructure to strengthening the financial system of the country to supporting small industry. So, and then looking at making it easier for individuals, including the elderly, signaling that the government is willing to privatize, not just disinvestment. Please note the words she's used this time has been used after 20 years in any budget in India, that they're willing to privatize government-owned industry and business, signaling that the government's business is not to be in business. Allow the private sector to operate businesses. The government will be in more strategic areas. And I think that's a good way to supplement the initiative and effort of both together. So overall, signal on reforms is clear. Signal on providing funding where required is quite clear. Cleaning up the financial services system, because that is necessary for the real sector and the real economy to turn around and improve.
All right.
I think overall, wonderful job done.
Let me go to our political spokesperson, Sambit Patra. As Mr. Munjal said, the intent is clear, the signaling on reform is clear, and yet the opposition says that basically what the government is doing is cooking up the books. It's basically selling the family silver, quote unquote, to meet your revenue shortfalls. How would you respond to that, Sambit Patra?
As far as the opposition is concerned, with all due respect to them, I would say the opposition has never praised a budget. I don't remember opposition praising any budget. I rather feel that on the eve of the budget, they prepare their speeches. I mean, that's customary of the opposition. But I believe that this is a very important budget because we had a huge crisis, a global crisis, and on the backdrop of the crisis, the kind of work that Mr. Modi's government did during the crisis and the way it is in fact carrying it forward through this budget is something which we all need to applaud for. And I would like to thank the Prime Minister as well as Nirmala Sitharamanji for the, I would say, the path that they have chosen in this budget. It is spend, spend and spend, and of course everyone's recommendation was to loosen the purse string, to see to it that more and more money is being spent for infrastructure, because that would give I would say a fillip to the tomorrow's India. And I see a great deal of expenditure today. I see 34.5% increase in capex. That's a great thing. I see 137% increase in the health budget compared to what it was last year, which I believe is presently, in fact, viewed as a great fillip as far as India is concerned. Most importantly, as a doctor, I would say 35,000 rupees for vaccination has even, in fact, given us a great deal of confidence.
Okay.
As far as the agri sector is concerned, a great deal has been done for the agri sector as well, with 16.5 lakh crore rupees as the agri credit budget, which I think is going to, in fact, help the agri sector in a great way.
Gaurav Vallabh, broadly, I mean, we'll get to the brass tacks in a second, but broadly, whether it is increasing FDI in insurance, whether it is the idea of a bad bank, whether it is divestment targets, government getting out of those areas where it should not be in, these were all broadly, common sense reforms that we've all agreed upon over the last 20, 30 years. Even when the UPA was in power, you did hike FDI in a whole bunch of sectors. You also did disinvestment of PSUs. These are common sense reforms that any economist, any well-meaning politician has been arguing for a number of years. You can pick the devil in the detail, as it were, but broadly on principle, directionally, don't you think you should give credit to the government for thinking big in the direction of reforms?
Zaka, every budget is prepared in the backdrop of a few economic issues. What were the few economic issues? The demand was all-time low, and 12 crore people had lost their job during this pandemic time. Now, our GDP size is around 200 lakh crore. Out of that, 135 lakh crore GDP is created by the consumers. My first question, that what extra money we had put in the hands of the consumer, whether in the form of tax relief, what take-home salary of a middle-class employee got increased after today's budget? The answer is zero. Second point, which I would like to point out, that don't try to make these accounting tricks with the common people of our country. My friend from BJP is saying health budget got increased. Jaka, you will be surprised that in a health budget of 2.23 lakh crore, what they did, they had included the Finance Commission grants of 49,000 crore. They had included one-time cost of vaccination. And above this, Jaka, to the best of my surprise, I never thought these type of tricks somebody can play. They had included the water and sanitation budget in the health budget. Is this the tricks which government has to make? If you will eliminate all those things, the health budget increases less than 5 to 7%, which is equivalent to the inflation. Third point. Fourth point, Zaka, I'm just asking, what is the direct intervention so that these 12 crore people who lost the job and people who had not lost the job, there is a salary cut of 25 to 30% across the sector. What additional money we were able to put into the hands
directly
of the people in this budget?
Let me ask Sunil. So one second. Let me just open this up, Professor Vallabh. Let me get in Sunil Alagh. Sunil Alagh, I heard you in the afternoon. You were saying that the one criticism that you have of the budget, if at all you have one, is this not putting enough money in the hands of the salaried class or the middle class. But some would say the fact that she's not tinkered with the tax structure, there is now a predictable tax structure. We know directionally which way direct tax reform is going. And even in indirect taxes, the finance minister has clarified this agri-cess that they're levying will not change net-net. For example, on petrol and diesel prices, retail prices will not be affected. You don't have to pay more, even though this agri-cess is being imposed on petrol and diesel. So the fact that she's not touched taxes for the common man, wouldn't that itself be a net-net positive?
No, I think, look, I gave 10 on 10 for infrastructure spending and creation of jobs. I gave an overall 8.5 out of 10 for this budget because I think it's done a tremendous job under the circumstances that the finance minister had. But look, what I was saying was a suggestion, and it wasn't really a criticism. The middle class has been left high and dry. And this 300 million people have always complained. They complained last year that we are being left out. And the government said, no, we have to look after the poor, which is a fact. And all the farmers had to be looked after. And even in the budget before, they followed the Say's law that, look, if I take care of the supply side, simple economics, if I take care of the supply side, it will trickle down to demand. What they forgot was the Keynes side. The Keynes economists have said that, look, you have to put money with the consumer. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think you should have put money into the hands of the middle class because they are tending to save. They will say, let me put money aside for a rainy day. It's the poor, when you give them money, that they will spend, and therefore they will spend a lot. But the middle class, I said, incentivize spending. That's the thing. Without increasing your budget, you could have incentivized spending into areas like where the industry is really facing problems, in hotels, in eating out, in taking a flight. You should have said that, look, if the middle class spends there, then they can claim a tax relief, which they never had. And because GST would go up, it would pay for itself. That's a different area of saying that, look, what the finance minister could have done without actually putting in too much money. That part has been left out. And even the vice chairman of the Niti Aayog said, oh, Aam Aadmi, he's drawn a line now. He says Aam Aadmi is not considered in the middle income group. Aam Aadmi is the poor guy, which is all right. For me, the Aam Aadmi was 300 million. They are not poor guys, and they are not. They are
Okay, let me get Kanchan Gupta. Let me get Kanchan Gupta to respond to that. Is that a fair criticism that the middle class is getting squeezed? Although the government would say, for laid-off employees, this was an off-budget announcement in those series of packages that the finance minister announced. That PF, the government will pay PF for I think up to 2 years for people who had been laid off if they're being taken back by employers. So the criticism that's coming in from the likes of Sunil Alagh or from the Congress party is that you're not putting enough money in the hands of the middle class. Is that valid, Kanchan Gupta, or is it not?
Well, I personally don't care much for this kind of criticism. We have traditionally seen the budget from a very urban middle class perspective, that what is in it for the middle classes. And when we say what is in it for the middle classes, we always look at it in terms of whether your income tax has gone up or come down, or whether the slabs have changed. And that's how it gets all bogged down. First of all, there is no one middle class. So India now has middle classes. And there's a lot in this budget for the middle classes. When we talk of infrastructure, we talk of reviving core industries too. And those are jobs that were at stake till about some months ago. When we talk about spending big on agriculture, it impacts the middle classes because ultimately it trickles back to you. And all this, if it is being done without taxing or without adding any additional tax, I think it's a great story. Lastly, Zaka, I mean, we don't look at the smaller pictures within the big picture. The government is now recognizing the gig economy as a substantial player in creating jobs, because those are the jobs of the future. We are not looking at the choked income lines, which are now gradually opening up. So there will be more money to be spent. And unless people were spending, your GST collection would not have been steadily going up over the last 2-3 months.
Yes.
So people are spending, and they will continue to spend. So to assume that just because your income tax was not tinkered with, people will stop spending or they will not have any money to spend. I mean, if there are more jobs, there will be more people with incomes and more people who will be spending money.
So
I would rather look at it that way.
Gig economy point, I think it's a point well taken. I think the finance minister today made an announcement of surveying or mapping the number of people who are involved in the unorganized sector / the gig economy. But one idea, and again, this was a common sense idea. It's been there since, I think, 2013, 2014 at least. The creation of a bad bank or an asset management company today was announced. The finance minister has also clarified in her interview to Network 18 that a bulk of it, the contribution to that, will come from the private sector. People whose expertise, whose specialization, Dr. Manoj Kumar, is in asset reorganization and asset management. It's not the job of everyday bankers to be doing such a specialized thing. So that was a net big positive, which is perhaps why the markets reacted so favorably. In fact, the BankX was up more than 5% today. The Nifty above 14,000. The Sensex ending, I think, 48,000 and change. Clearly, the market, I think I'm told that this 2,000-point rise in the Sensex is the highest that we've seen on budget day in the last 40 years.
That's right. In fact, this was a very stellar announcement for setting up asset management companies, and this has been largely also from the listening board from the industry and the banks itself. In fact, this would go a very, very long way in trying to correct the NPA position in the short term and mid term. And the benefits would percolate back to the markets and back to the banking system in the immediate future. And therefore, apart from this, taking a cue from this entire discussion around the middle class, and I tend to agree with Kanchan a bit on the different classes, just the indirect benefits to the middle class I want to flag, which has not come on the discussion so far. Just look at the direct tax reforms, and some of the reforms on making the ease to do business and operate. Now, who are the people who will benefit from a relaxed DDT regime? Who are the people who will benefit from a much more seamless tax compliance regime? Who are the people who will be doing the startups? Who are the people who are setting up small companies in the 5 crore to 20 crore range? Who are these people? These are definitely not the Aam Aadmi people that was being referred to. These are the people who are somewhere in between the Aam Aadmi and the upper class that we talk about. So that on one side, on the other side, trying to clean up the bad apples from the good apples in the banking sector. And just to extend this, in fact, the FM, I was hearing her earlier this evening on your channel on CNN, that the whole process of ARCs would be extended to private players to participate in it. And so also the other discussion around the development financial institutions. So there's definitely a perception of a much deeper role by the private sector to bring efficiency in operating and handling assets, both in the books of the banks as well as assets of the company.
I think those are two
ports,
very important points. We'll be playing that interview at 10 p.m. with the finance minister. Those two very important points. One, on private sector participation in this asset management or reorganization company. And two, also she believes on this development fund initiative. It's not just going to be one institution, it's going to be multiple institutions that'll play a role.